To introduce our community chat, I'm going to lean on Kirsten Hoffman from Friends of Cotillo Park with the preface that I will say just the study here is just a study in that, so these, this isn't City of Boston or anything, this is an independent study, but interesting nonetheless. So.
Okay, so most of you know by now that this building, which was formerly the North End Bathhouse, was voted by the Boston Landmarks Commission to be considered for Boston Landmark status, so it's actually a pending landmark. In connection with that petition, the Save the Nazzaro Coalition has been working with Boston Architectural College's Gateway Project, and we have Killian Mokete here today, who along with a team of students is working on some different mixed-use scenarios for the future use of this building. Ideally considering that this building should be self-supporting financially and in terms of staffing. So that's what they'll be doing. Among other things, they'll be reaching out to the community for community input, which is going to be really important. So, Killian.
Thank you, Kirsten, for introducing me. I apologize for coming late. I just finished a studio. I think briefly what the Gateway project is at the BAC. Over the years, the Gateway as an initiative has partnered with different community groups that are looking to utilize architectural students who most of them either in their graduate program or kind of looking for on-the-job experience. The BAC offers students experience that when they come out, they can actually use that experience as on-the-job experience. So that's part of the program. That's what the Gateway does. And we treat the work as actual work that can be usable for a purpose. So what we're going to be doing with the students is something that we hope should be able to be utilized by the Save the Nazzaro Coalition and yourself as well to evaluate what this building potential could be. So in brief, we are going to produce a feasibility study that will support an exploration of what are the different ways in which this building can be utilized. And that will be following a kind of in-depth analysis of the work that's already been done. There's a report that was done by Sasaki, which did a lot of work in talking to the community about what the community wanted this building to be. We're reviewing that currently. And also we have done a kind of a half a day long tour of this building to see how it's used. We're going to come back again and assess its actual architecture. And we're going to be engaging with the various members of the community in terms of activities. There are schools who utilize this building for after school activities. There's adult programs, not adult programs, senior programs that utilize this building. So we're going to review all of that and take that all into consideration in terms of programming. And we hope that if there's any other input that might not be channeled through those different ways that we'll be engaging, you can either get in touch with Kirsten, who is coordinating with us, and we can take all those views into consideration before we kind of hand over the report. But as we work through, we're going to be engaging with Save the Nazzaro to review where we are before we progress to the next stages. So in short, we're going to really produce a feasibility study that is going to support how this building can be utilized. We don't think we're going to be doing anything on the exterior. It might be maybe looking at something to do with the entrance and very few details. We think the students we're working with don't have the time to really engage anything that's outside the interior of the space. And I have with me Anastasia, who is one of our students. And in total, we have about 5 students, 3 of whom are master's level students, and the other 2 are kind of undergrad students, both interior and architecture. And my background, just to give context, I'm an architect, and I teach at the BAC and also at Northeastern University. And I currently practice with a non-profit called Build Help International out of Beverly. And we do a lot of work in Haiti, and a lot of our work is predicated around what's happening in this room, which is engaging the community on how the neighborhood should develop. That's kind of my key interest in how to approach architecture. hope that's,
Yep. So just one other thing to add is that this is completely different than the consideration of a new, modern, larger North End community center, probably at a different location. So, you know, we're all in support of that, but this study is just for this building, just for the interior, and has nothing to do with the big North End community center.
But how can you have a study for this building when you don't even know where the new building is going to be and what's going to be in the new building, which then would presume what would be done in this building?
So
I don't understand that.
So I think, so it's not, as John said, it's not something that's binding on the city, it's not in a, you know, it's not going to be, I think we're assuming that, for example, the athletic uses, the basketball court, the uses that take up more space would move to a different location. And if that's what happens, then how will this building be used on the interior? For example, for things like senior activities and daycare activities. So what fits in this building, if the exterior of this building is preserved, because we know the basketball court doesn't quite fit in this building. So what works here if some things have to be moved elsewhere?
So you're going on assumptions.
Yes.
Well, yeah, just to double down on what John said too, so this isn't a city study, this is.
No, I understand that, but it's still, the
Yeah,
premise
so
is,
we'll,
you know, how
we'll
can you
accept it after
even,
the fact,
Yeah,
you know,
and
our
the-
study's still working on it,
Yeah,
we'll have an update
exactly.
from them soon.
That's why I was a little confused, because they did a study on the building, like how it's used and things like that, so this is just, is it gonna be supplemental to that, or, like, I know it's separate entirely, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just having a hard time of understanding, like,
Yeah, so-
like, we know we need senior space in here, we know we're severely lacking, like, resources for our kids, especially the teens. I mean, you go into, like, you know, some of these new centers, like, they're unbelievable in terms of what they offer. So I'm just confused as to, like,
Yeah, so Sasaki's study, when Sasaki looked at this building,
the
Sasaki
architecture, that, just
looked
to
at-
get everybody.
Yeah, looked at this building, how can you fit everything in this building, right? So, and that didn't work, 'cause there's not enough space in this building. Even if you knock down this building, knock down part of this building, according to Sasaki, there's still not enough space here. So, there are some other potential locations that Sasaki also looked at.
Mhm.
But putting those aside, just for this building, if we assume Sasaki's right and it's not gonna work to have the whole community center here, and if the exterior of this building has to be preserved because this building becomes a Boston landmark, then you've got the interior of the building, and what can that be used for? It doesn't all have to be public use, it can be, you know, you guys are working on this, but it can be some mixed private use. You could have some office space, a coffee shop, a little museum. I'm just throwing this stuff out, not a basketball court, because it doesn't fit, I can put that elsewhere. So what works in here for mixed uses, to keep this building, you know, active, in the center of the community, some community uses, what would work best here, because it is a, you know, it has a great history. It's been important to the community for 100 years. So what works in here? So there are going to be, you know, multitudes of potential uses, and these guys are just going to come up with some that would work, with the goal that it's self-supporting, it doesn't have an economic drain on the city if the city continues to own it. And if the city continues to own it and it has some community uses, you know, how does the staffing work, for example? Because we know that that's an issue. We know that the BCYF only has so many staffing people, so that if there are community uses here, how do we make the other uses in the building support that staffing, so you don't have to hire an extra staff person?
Yeah.
So.
I'm sorry, I may have missed this. There's several students then that partake in this and work independently kind of on their
No,
own drawings, or?
They don't work on their own. So the gateway actually, they have to spend 20 hours a week on this project. And part of what they get out of that is an experience of working on a real project, which has a real use. And being
Got it.
here, he's actually getting experience on engaging the community on what is needed. So the students will work on this, and it's a shared effort. But they also have our direction, so we're supposed to kind of supervise, review, and edit what they produce. And just to kind of to add to what Kirsten is saying, I think that what Sasaki did, which was really based on the idea of how can a big community center fit in this plot, was not really doing justice on how can this building be preserved and what would fit in the preserved building. So I think we're looking at that component.
Okay.
And what we're going to do as well is study. They did great work in looking at what the community wants, the different activities. They had extensive conversations. We have all of that summary. And we're going to be identifying any gaps or anything that we might want to validate with the community and ask more questions on that, specific questions. And we hope that once you have those options, then even if some uses go elsewhere, you know what the options for this building are. Because they're not binding, then it helps you to engage in conversations with either the city or any other entity that might be willing to help develop the building. So it's a tool really to help see what the potential of this building is if we were to keep it rather than knock it down.
Phil?
I'm gonna miss something, but you're doing this study, and you complete the study, and you're making some recommendations probably in that study. Who does that study go to and for what reason?
It can go to, the study will be available to everybody, including.
It's not a city thing?
No, and it's also not a substitute for, at some point in time, and Maria, you can talk about this.
Yeah, like this building will have its own process,
Yeah.
whether we build a new building or not, and if that comes now or later. So like during that process, the city obviously will accept any feedback as it does during any of our processes. So, they'll definitely, sounds like, give this to the city for consideration. So we'll gladly accept feedback as we do from any resident or constituent.
Thank you. Does anyone else have? Victor?
Yeah, I'd like to express some concern about what I hear as a restriction, that the Nazzaro Center should be self-supporting. That places a heavy burden on your study, number one. And number two, I ask why. The Nazzaro Center is not self-supporting now. If it is to be a community center of some sort in the future, why is it being taken off the city ledger? I think if the class is burdened by that restriction, it narrows what you can come out with
Yeah.
in your study, and I would like to see it abolished as a restriction.
Okay,
Duly
yeah,
noted.
that's fair. So maybe we can, it wasn't, it was sort of a goal. So if it's a mixed use and the city doesn't want to pay for it, can it work by itself? But you guys can look at both options. You
Yeah.
can look at, something that would require money from the city and something that wouldn't. That's a good point.
Do you have any contact information, or how are you going to solicit feedback from the community, or how would you like it?
So,
I know it was a bathhouse. I don't think they want to change it back into one, just so you know.
I think ideally we would like to go through Kirsten to, if we need feedback, so that she can coordinate members of the community appropriately. That way we don't cause any confusions.
Okay.
And that way I can still give out my cards if there's any need for contact. But I think we'd like to kind of coordinate communications through her, if that's okay.
I was just curious. Yeah.
And we'll ideally be setting up some opportunities for community
Yeah.
input as well, community meeting.
Yeah, we'll organize. I think once we get, we're currently kind of compiling available information, and we've started the building. Once we get to the options stage, once we kind of looked at all of that, we'll, through your permission, kind of have a public engagement of the options before they develop further, so that we can kind of get the input before weeding them out.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
obviously the seniors group, I'm sure, would have their opinions, as
Yeah.
well as the folks that are
Yeah.
working here currently and work with the teams. So, Michelle at the front desk, for instance.
Yeah, and these guys are also going to be meeting with various groups within the community, like the Elliott School and NEWNC and, you know, whoever else, anybody else who has input or ideas, they can let me know.
Just quickly, what's the timeline?
So it's a semester studio. It ends in beginning of June, and by then we need to have done the report. Right now we are finalizing kind of background information. So I think in about 3 weeks we should be getting to a stage where we can have something to engage. But I think that changes a little bit depending on the groups that we need to meet. But by June we would have a report, a final report in place. And again, this is not going to be work that is ready to build. This is going to be feasibility stage where you can have a pretty good understanding of what can fit, what cannot fit. It might still, obviously, if there's anything about that in understanding the details that will come later if any of it comes out of it anyway. The goal is just to give you a sense of what can fit and how.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. We're looking forward to the study. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you for welcoming.